Hi, Dr. E here with specific messages for my Writing Fantasy Online students. Hi, hope y'all are doing well. Since the videos hadn't been working and hadn't had a lot of direct communication with you, I wanted to just make a video with you all especially. Wanted to go over a number of things with you. First of all, the business this week is peer review. I want to make sure that you do peer review. Going to do things a little bit differently. Kayleen is able to set up a Zoom meeting. I talked with some of y'all and you didn't know how to do that. So I'm going to ask Kayleen to set up a Zoom meeting at some point this week amongst the four of y'all so you can peer review and go over your stories. What I would recommend would be that you all will distribute your stories in advance, that you read each other, that you give each other some peer review. I'll let you all figure out who is the primary and secondary respondent to each student. But then when you all meet, you all can give each other feedback and discussion stories. Second, I wanted to talk about midterm grades. Midterm grades are posted. They are based only on your short stories number 1. Quite frankly, quite likely they're going to be higher than they are because I didn't factor in the other work that you're doing. But if you're turning in all your page counts, it's like a free A. If you're doing your reading responses and your other work, it's like a free A. So generally my grades get bumped up at the end. But I did need to turn in midterm grades, and I only factor in what you got in your first stories. I do want to talk about the first stories. Generally speaking, there were very good first drafts of, or first stories for fantasy and science fiction. There were some things I wanted to talk to you about. First, a lot of people are still doing, trying to pray this thankfully, things that you don't do when writing fantasy and science fiction. And I need to say in advance, this is kind of a little caveat there, that my perspective is I'm assuming that you want to be working in publishing fantasy and science fiction writers, particularly fantasy writers. I'm not trying to change who you are. I'm not trying to interfere with your artistic integrity or creativity, but there are things that you do if you want to publish fantasy and science fiction, particularly fantasy. Lesson number 1, and I started this on day 1, I did the videos and lectures, you do not do the information dump. You don't start with a background, you don't start with a prologue, you don't talk about how the world is, you start with action, and you just give the reader just enough information so the story makes sense at that point in the story. Card talks about this a lot when he talks about the rule for abatement and the other things we talked about, story construction as well. Lots of people had, they either began with some kind of prologue or information, or they had a big info dump at the beginning of the story. You really don't need that much, just enough so the story makes sense as well. Lots of people are having characters alone for a long time. And again, that just doesn't work. It's not very interesting. Nathaniel Hawthorne, who's the American Shakespeare, could not do that well. And it's unlikely any of us can as well, unless there's some physical action going on, running through the woods, trying to escape, zombie apocalypse, Jack London trying to survive 75 degree below freeze. But otherwise, characters alone on stage, you can have it a little bit, but don't do it for very long. It is not interesting. You begin with action if you want to publish your fiction. You don't begin with exposition. You don't want characters alone for a long time. A couple of other things, and again, I realize a lot of us are sharing parts of novels or longer manuscripts, and that's fine. But if you want to publish your fantasy SF, 5,000 words is a long story. You don't want to go over 5,000 words. Anything over 20 pages in Word is not publishable as a short story. It's not, and I say this because I never met a 20-page story I don't like either as well. My short fiction tends to be longer, more like novelette length or things like that as well. So I have a hard time publishing my short stuff because my stuff is too long. I speak from experience as well. And a lot of us, for the length of the stories we're writing, use too many characters. And I'm not saying there's a preset number of characters, but you need to know who the characters are, who they're important, and why they're part of the story. If you've got 6 villains there and your narrator, do you really need 6 villains? Can't they be 2 or 3? Can't they threaten their narrator? Can't they threaten your narrator adequately? because you need to understand who all the characters are, why they're important to the story as well. And the last thing I'll say is you just need to edit carefully. There should not, and again, this isn't me being, 1960s, 1970s English teacher, things like that. But if you're gonna publish, you shouldn't have misspelled words, you shouldn't have grammatical errors, you shouldn't have a lot of run-on sentences. I realize none of this has to do with creativity. This is something that you do at the very end, but that's something that you can do once you respond to each other. You can give each other a really good, thorough editing job. I should not be seeing lots of comma splices and just punctuation errors and make sure that you're going to publish. And again, this isn't me trying to help you get ready for the market. This isn't me trying to change who you are as a writer, who you are as an author as well. So this week, it's peer review. We're also going to be finishing up or reading a little bit more of Moon Call by Patricia Biggs. And I'm also going to have another guest author, and I'm going to actually have a video camera recording. So if for some reason the WebEx recording fails, you'll have access to that information as well. And again, if you want to zoom in at 11 o'clock, or not zoom in, I apologize. If you want to WebEx in at 11 o'clock and meet with Deborah Fox, who actually started a short story in this class that won an award by Independent Booksellers Association as well. So she really knows her stuff. I invite you to zoom in at 11 on Thursday, which I believe is tomorrow. Again, just short information, want to share that with you. Hope things are going well. As always, contact me if you need anything. So thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon. All right.